As a leftist, as an anti-capitalist, I do have to acknowledge that there are times where capitalism does benefit the progressive cause. It's true. You guys can read about it, but this is an undeniable fact. There are times where even a broken clock is right twice a day. It's true. For example, when corporations market to LGBT people in order to make money, it may be insincere, and that's obvious, but regardless, when they do that, they contribute to normalizing LGBT people in society. And anyone here who's LGBT will acknowledge that, yeah, being acknowledged and being recognized and represented in society, in media and society and whatnot does help. So while capitalism is shit, I will say there are times where it gets some stuff right, where some good comes out of it. Now, funnily enough, conservatives will only ever criticize capitalism, or I should say this, or they don't know it's capitalism they're criticizing, but it is capitalism they're criticizing, will only ever criticize capitalism in those small instances where it ends up doing some good for particularly, like, some particular marginalized group, right? Like, you know, LGBT people. And this brings us to Sydney Watson. Sydney Watson made a video recently called "How the Medical Industry is Profiting Off Transgender People." It's a money-making racket, and this is true. The big pharma, big pharma is benefiting from trans people just as much as it's benefiting from people with diabetes or with basically any recurring condition. Or chronic condition that requires frequent medication. And this is a bad thing. Commodifying, or not commodifying, is that the right word? Monetizing these commodities, these things needed to exist, is bad. It's cringe. It's very, very bad. But it is interesting how this conservative media figure is only making a big deal about it when it comes to trans people getting access to, I guess, like, hormones and whatnot. That's interesting. But I haven't seen the video yet, so it's possible that's not what this is. Let's go ahead and watch.
So yeah, we're all gonna need therapy after this. Hi, my name is Sydney, welcome back to my channel. Before we launch in, yes, this video is sponsored by Surfshark, because we—
No!
The time. I think you mean all the time. It's far too early in the video for you to be here. Go away. So today I want to take a look at the idea that the medical side of the transgender movement is a money-making racket. And before we get started, I just want you all to bear in mind, this is a huge topic with a lot of moving parts, and there's just no way for me to cover them all in this video. So don't yell at me, because it hurts my tender, tender feelings. You don't have any of those. With that being said, I also want to highlight this is not directed at the people who transition and go on to lead happy, healthy lives. It's also not directed
the vast majority of trans people who transition. You do realize that all the data represent, all the consensus, I mean, the data overwhelmingly presents this conclusion, shows that transgender people who are able to both transition to any degree, as well as find some level of acceptance within their family, as well as, the rest of society, their attempted suicide rates drop massively. As a matter of fact, I think youth, transgender youth who simply have parental support, I think their suicide rates drop down more or less like pretty equally with the general population. It's actually pretty crazy. So this is basically all trans people who are given access to the ability to transition, is what she would be acknowledging here. Trans people who manage to transition and go on to live their lives, any trans person that can transition, statistically speaking, that has the opportunity.
At the healthcare professionals who actually do their jobs properly, for once. This is simply a look at the nefarious side of the medical complex. Spooky. So yeah, let's get this show on the road. In 1983, a man called Walt Hay—
Disappointed but not surprised. So this guy, Walt, whatever the fuck, is probably like one of the 5 really famous detransitioners. Basically, he is known for basically being an anti-trans advocate nowadays. The dude went on, there was a Russia Today documentary that was made that's basically him talking about how being transgender and transitioning is dangerous and you need to not do it and yada, yada, yada. He's literally like an anti-trans activist, you know, in quotes now. That's his job now. That's what he does. I guess he accidentally, maybe he is actually, I don't know. Apparently he had an unpleasant run-in with being transgender, and, yeah. Xanderhall, there's a small subreddit called r/actual detrans, which is about lefty detransitioned people. That's interesting. Yeah, but basically, more or less, this dude is like a big anti-trans figure now, so anything coming from this dude just fucking triggers the fuck out of me.
Mayer visited a leading gender specialist in San Francisco. After one appointment, the specialist told him that in order to alleviate his feelings of confusion and discomfort, Walt needed to transition to female. By his second appointment, he had a prescription for cross-sex hormones. 8 years later...
Yes, this was a long time ago, comparatively.
Walt transitioned back to male after finding...
Yes, this was a long time ago. Also, I'm pretty sure that's not how the story goes. I watched the Russia Today documentary about him, and that's not exactly how the story goes. Though I will say, let's entertain the possibility that this is in fact what happened. That he just went to a doctor and the doctor said, "Yep, you're trans," after one appointment and put him on hormones. So not only does this never happen, like ever, but this is such a negligible worry to have in our current system that there's a lot more to it than that now. If you're transgender, you are experiencing some kind of dysphoria, and you go to a doctor, chances are it's going to take quite a bit of review before the conclusion that is, reached is, all right, time for you to start taking hormones and so on, transitioning, This isn't usually done with haste, especially not now. It's possible that's what happened back in the day, but I don't care about that. I care about how the process is done now.
That gender reassignment did very little to alleviate his original feelings. Just so you're aware, this is after he had the snip. Even back in the 80s, and even before that it seems, a body of medical professionals didn't seem to address underlying traumas or unresolved issues of patients before giving them hormone therapies and surgeries. And that trend and way of
it's a good thing we don't do that now.
Thinking seems to persist in some medical circles today. This is the point where I encourage you to strap in. It's about to get bumpy. In 2019, a professor of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University said that when it comes to
I know what this fucking dude's name is. I was watching a Destiny debate on the car ride to California. Me and Lonnie were watching it, and this little fucking shithead, Destiny was on the kill stream or something, and they were bringing in callers, and this little fucking shithead, this little fucking boy comes in, like, I have this one book from a doctor from Johns Hopkins University that says that transitioning doesn't actually help trans people with their mental problems. Meanwhile, the entirety of the scientific consensus, the entire fucking medical community, is that this is untrue. That transgender people benefit unbelievably from being allowed to transition. It's just this one book. It's one fucking doctor who doesn't even actually specialize in this particular field. Even made a book that disagrees with the consensus. This book to like the trans community is basically the is basically like the trans version of the bell curve, right? Like with how Charles Murray and that one other fucking dude wrote the bell curve, and it's been lambasted by the entirety of the scientific community to this day, but is still cited by racists as like, look, we have this book written by a fairly respected, at one point, scientist says that black people are genetically inferior to white people. This is that book that they point to. There was also another study that the transphobes would point to back in the day, but the author of that study came out to say that it doesn't say what they think it does. Transitioning does overwhelmingly help trans people. And like she was super fucking mad that transphobes were using her study to insist that transgender people don't benefit from transitioning. So yeah, never trust conservatives when they present. God, I love that I've just fucking immersed myself in so much of this fucking discourse that I know I can fucking feel it when a reactionary incorrectly cites a particular source. I love that.
Transgender patients. Their mental problems, often depression, discouragement, are the things that need treatment. They're going to be in the hands of doctors for the rest of their lives. Many of them are going to be sterilized, not able to have their own children, and many will regret this. Can you imagine having a life where you need to seek?
But also depression isn't necessarily connected to dysphoria in trans people. It's such a high standard to expect transition to fix all trans people's problems. That is absolutely true, Milo Stewart. However, the studies actually demonstrate that what really helps trans people and their suicide rates is acceptance, parental acceptance, most notably among trans youth, and having supportive friend groups and being in a city or location or town that is overwhelmingly accepting of LGBT people seems to massively benefit the mental health of trans people, particularly young trans people. Obviously, transitioning and alleviating dysphoria helps as well, but it seems like another huge part of it is acceptance.
Doctors all the time for everything just to live? Getting your hormones checked, getting everything checked. That is something doctors should like to spare people of. But instead of sparing patients, more and more
yeah, if you have cancer, it would be nice if they didn't have to go to constant doctor's appointments, if they didn't have to get chemo and radiation and take pills and whatnot to keep themselves capable of functioning. It would be cool if cancer patients didn't have to do those things. I'm sure doctors would rather not have to subject their patients to those things, but guess what? That's the treatment. If you have cancer, if you don't want to die or you want to significantly increase the chances of living longer, you have to undergo those procedures, even if at a surface level, they seem pretty shitty. But comparatively to what would happen if they didn't get those, get that help, it's probably a lot better. Simple as that. It's like the Bernie or bust argument, right? Biden is unquestionably better than Trump, so we vote for Biden. It's like that. What if we just never went to a doctor because it's not convenient? Well, that would be up to you.
Accounts are indicating that doctors are very quick to prescribe hormones not only to young adults, but puberty blockers to children. Puberty blockers, for those of you who don't know, are
all the data shows that puberty blockers do not in any way have a negative effect on young people. All the data that exists currently shows that when you have I guess we can do sort of a paint stream here to visually sort of describe this to you guys. I think this is how Vosh showed it. This is how Vosh represented. This is a long time ago. None of you guys are going to remember this because it was a fucking long time ago. But let's say this is a little kid, right? And they're prepubescent, right? And they would have gone and gotten some kind of fucking puberty if they hadn't gone to the doctor because they have some sort of gender dysphoria, and that's how it is. And they go to a doctor and the doctor's like, oh shit, you have some kind of gender dysphoria, after some appointments and whatnot. And they're like, okay, well, you're like 11 years old, you're going to start going through puberty soon, so since we're pretty sure you probably have gender dysphoria, we're going to go ahead and prescribe you puberty blockers that will prevent you from going through the wrong puberty, so that once you reach an appropriate age, you can get on hormones and start transitioning your body without having the sort of kneecap or the hard start of having already gone through the wrong puberty. Now, I should clarify, you can still go transition and look just fine and be just fine if you went through the wrong puberty, but it definitely helps having not gone through your assigned genders at birth puberty, right? So if you stay... So what the doctor will do is just put you on hormone blockers, and all it does is prevent you from going through puberty. Now, I should clarify that in the event that you decide, actually, no, I'm not trans, and I don't want to be on puberty blockers anymore, you can get taken back, you can get taken off of them, and the data so far shows that in almost, like in the overwhelming majority of cases, you just get right back to where you would have been. Like if you hadn't taken puberty blockers, almost immediately, you go through puberty, right? And that's what happens. Now, on the other hand, if you were right, if the doctor was right, and you are transgender, then you get to go on actual hormones when you're the appropriate age. And you go through the correct puberty, and you're all good. You're all good. You're all Gucci. You get to transition now, and it's way easier for you. There's literally no downsides. Now, don't get me wrong, all medical procedures and all medications have some percentage of failure, like some failure rate, some risk that is to be taken, but the data shows that there is no more harm in putting a kid on puberty blockers and no risk than there would be for basically any other medicine that a kid would take. I'm pretty sure like medication you would take for an ear infection when you're a kid has a higher chance of harming you than puberty blockers do. So that's worth keeping in mind.
Are drugs designed to postpone puberty in children? Self-explanatory. In the last...
Any explanation for why this is bad? You do know that that there are kids who go on puberty blockers for other reasons, right? That aren't transgender or anything like that. They go on puberty blockers because they have some medical condition that requires it. That's a thing, right? That is a thing that happens. It's not just for trans kids. It's usually a different kind of puberty blocker, but it's a thing. I guess what that was meant to do right there is sort of like sort of invoke the disgust response in her audience. Like her audience is supposed to respond to that, like, oh, forcing kids to transition? Oh my god. That's where that comes from, right? So all that was just sort of like to prod her audience into having some kind of emotional response, I suppose.
Last year, we've seen an explosion in the stories of people regretting their decision to transition. And to compound that are the stories of former transgender patients.
There's like the 5 dudes, and they're all now like virulent transphobic, like anti-trans like advocates now that are like the founders of like literal hate groups and anti-trans advocacy groups that try to like make it so people can't transition. Like that's what these people's legacy is. And they're all old as fuck.
Patients who claimed they were given hormones without any type of proper therapy or assessment. Funnily enough, an example of this is actually Planned Parenthood, who's become the second largest provider of hormone therapy in the United States. Yikes. On their website, they...
Yikes. Do I actually have to like... if I look into this, what she's saying right now is not going to be anywhere close to how she's describing it, right? You do know that if I could do it right now. I could just go look up what she's mentioning here, read the actual source, read what actually happened, and it's not going to be what she's insinuating it is. It never is, not with these people. You guys remember that time when Blair White made a video that was, she was making fun of the idea of trans women getting cervical cancer, and she flashed a little bit on screen while she's talking about how crazy and ridiculous it is to insist that transgender women could have cervical cancer, because of course you need to have a cervix to get cervical cancer, right? So she flashes a screen from the Canadian Cancer Society, I think it was, up on screen, and it's like the first paragraph of the website saying, if you're transgender, you may not have put much thought into needing to get checked for cervical cancer, because that sounds ridiculous. Obviously, you need a cervix to get cervical cancer, right? And she just showed that. But then I went to the website, and the paragraph below where she cut it out says, however, if you are a trans woman who has gotten bottom surgery, you need to get regularly checked for cervical cancer because you can get cervical cancer in what they call the neocervix, which is a pretty fucking cool name. I thought that was pretty funny because this is always what happens with these people. They'll cite some source or they'll mention or gesture to some event that happened, and I'll go out of my way and waste my time looking up what actually happened. I'll even look at their actual sources, and their sources won't say what they're saying it says. Cindy, I'm in a new room. I don't have any furniture. I'm getting sound foam. Relax, buddy. All right.
Clearly state, you don't need to participate in therapy or provide information from a mental health provider to receive hormone therapy. Here,
let's go ahead and look at the actual page. Also kind of based, because if you're going to Planned Parenthood to get your fucking hormone therapy, you're probably pretty far in already. Is this what she's referencing? I imagine this is what she's referencing. PlannedParenthood.org, gender affirming care. Let's see. Planned Parenthood California Central Coast is proud to provide quality, compassionate care to transgender, intersex, non-binary, and gender non-conforming patients. We are committed to improving the way transgender people receive health care in our community, including eliminating barriers to that care. What to expect? We offer hormone therapy for patients 18 years and older at all of our five health centers. Patients do not need to participate in therapy or provide information from a mental health provider to receive care at one of our locations. You may schedule an appointment online or by contacting our call center. Your initial appointment will include a review of your complete medical history, including your sexual and surgical history and current health practices, a thorough review of your transition goals, weight and blood pressure check. So basically like an overall, what you would need to see if you're going to provide a patient with hormones and care for transitioning. Like actually what you would expect.
provide information from a mental health provider to receive hormone therapy. Here they also detail how to get hormones, and at no point in the process is there a mental health evaluation, which maybe should be part of giving people life-altering drugs. I don't know, just a suggestion. You know,
I mean, they literally look at your medical history. You do realize they don't you can't just walk in as like a 15-year-old and say, I want hormones. You know, like they look at your history. Do you really think they just like let some fucking kid walk in and say, I want hormones? They just give them the hormones? Do you think that's how easy it is? You do realize that like transitioning, like getting access to hormones and whatnot if you're trans is like ridiculously fucking hard. It's really difficult. You have to be 18. That is true. You do have to be 18.
maybe what they should be giving them instead is a secure internet connection, which is why today's video is sponsored by Surfshark.
Okay. Wait, is that 2 fucking sponsors already? God, these people are fucking rolling in the dough. That is fucking insane.
So that all being said, use code Sydney to get 85%
Don't
your
actually,
weird cat searches. Now, interestingly, at some locations, and with a parent's permission, some children can get puberty blockers through Planned Parenthood. Puberty blocker drugs, in some cases, seem fairly easy to get as well, even though they are not FDA approved for this use and have resulted in thousands and thousands of deaths.
This has been, yes, thousands and thousands after being used by tens of millions of people. Tearing apart these arguments seems like easy money. These idiots are so careless that they basically do your job for you. No, they don't, because if you look at their fucking views, they get a shit ton of views and an overwhelming amount of support. You would think that these arguments, if you know anything about these things, is like easy to debunk, and it is easy to debunk if you know how to respond. But regardless of that, people eat this shit up like it's candy. So no, it's not easy to get your hands on hormone blockers. The FDA. I believe, hold on, I think this has been debunked. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, so when you look up FDA hormone blockers, this is what you get. You get the ChristianPost.com, which is an actual anti-LGBT hate group, like radical fucking like Christian alt-right fucking hate group. Then you get the FDA approving them as treatments for Cushing's disease and whatnot. Yeah, that's fine. You do realize that an FDA-approved drug doesn't have to be FDA-approved for specific uses, right? They have to be approved for particular dosages for particular groups of people to be safe. That's what the FDA does. You do realize you can take... Like, I think I took some fucking... you do realize there's things like Viagra is used by women for heart problems, right? The FDA approves that usage, or they don't. It doesn't specifically say it's for that. Like women use Viagra and Cialis for heart problems, and it is not approved by that for the FDA, but it is oftentimes prescribed by doctors for that usage. Yeah, drugs are used off-label all the time. God. Although I'll admit the 15-year-olds who've never actually like read a bottle or ever had like any actual drugs prescribed to them, other than the ones that their fucking mommy and daddy give them after they go to the doctor's office and get their little lollipop. When they go watching these videos, I do imagine they think that the argument that the FDA hasn't approved these drugs for this very specific usage probably sounds like a good argument. The argument that thousands of people have died from this thing also sounds like a good argument if you're 15 years old, because guess what? Thousands of people also die each year from fucking car accidents. As a matter of fact, you're way more likely to die in a car accident than you are on a plane per capita, like percentage-wise. But I guess I guess people are still scared of flying. I'm still scared of flying, but you know, it's an emotional thing. Zamp says I'm 15. Listen, you're one of the good ones.
And complications. Just FYI, these drugs are used for other things too, such as treating endometriosis, for example. The point is, it's not good. Now, because I'm a psychic,
yes. It's good argument, my friend.
I know that some of you at this point are gonna say, but Sydney, the kids can't get the things unless they have parents' consent. And Patricia, you're so right. But I just want to remind you that parents can have their children taken away if they don't let their kids access transition therapies.
Good. That's very good, and I'm glad. If you have some transphobic parents that aren't willing to let their kid transition when they want to, or at least get access to, like, you know, fucking hormone blockers, then yeah, they should probably have their kids taken away. That's child abuse. In the same way that not accepting your kid for being gay is child abuse. Forcing your kid to try to like go through some kind of fucking conversion therapy? Yeah, no. Yes. Take the kid away. Fuck them.
Some parents don't really have the option to say no, so that's fun. What's marginally worse here is...
You know what that reminds me of? Do you guys know that meme? Hold on. It's a really fucking... It's a good meme. Hold on. It reminds me of this meme. The parents aren't allowed to say no. The myth of consensual sex. I consent, I don't. Is Jesus saying I don't? Isn't there somebody you forgot to ask? It reminds me of that meme, where it's like the parents don't get to say no to their kid wanting to pursue whatever makes them happy or whatever. Yeah, I thought that's a good meme. Kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Is that doctors have admitted they don't actually know the long-term consequences and effects of puberty blockers on a child's body. Comforting. In 2015, the National Institutes of Health awarded the Boston Children's Hospital $5.7 million to conduct the first, just want to highlight that, the first study in the US to evaluate the long-term outcomes of giving transgender youths medical treatment, predominantly hormone blockers and cross-sex hormones.
Is this that one study that was done? No, this can't be that same study. Maybe it's because the science is still very young. The science is still very young. That is true. The study of how hormone blockers affect trans people is still a fairly new thing. However, it has been 5 years. It has been half a decade. That may not sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, that is a fair amount of time when it comes to studying the outcomes of these things. That's long enough for somebody who was... that's long enough for somebody who was 15 years old to have, or God, for someone who was 10 years old to go on hormone blockers and transition and now be 15 years old. Hell, that's long enough for someone to be who was 15 years old to transition and now be 20, a full-grown adult. I would argue that's pretty significant amount of time. Has there been any data to represent the fact that has there been any data whatsoever that you could point to that would suggest that it has a harmful effect? Spoilers, there hasn't been any data whatsoever that demonstrates that.
Never mind that they've already been giving kids these drugs for literally years. At this point, this kind of just
Yeah, and they've been giving women with heart problems Viagra for literally years.
Sounds like human experimentation just to see what happens, because who even cares, right? It's kind of like when you're 10 and you're...
Yeah, it's totally like that. No, 100%. Yeah, that's totally what's happening. It's not... Yeah, doctors all around the world, all around the country are just... It's just like for fun. They're just like, yeah, take some fucking hormone blockers, kid. We don't even know what it does, but yeah, go ahead and take it. Do you really think that's what's happening? Do you think that's what's actually happening behind the scenes in doctors' offices? Just they're just doing that. You do realize if this went badly, if there was like genuine harm that could be caused like with this, there was like actual risk that these doctors could lose their medical licenses, right? And get in a shit ton of trouble. Their entire livelihoods are at stake. You do realize that's a thing, right?
You're conducting your own experiments on flies by catching them and pulling their wings off to see if they grow back. Sydney, no one does that. Yeah, well, they don't grow back. Just so you know. Now, one of the most widely prescribed puberty blockers, Lupron, however this is pronounced, recently had to update its label to indicate that it causes seizures and serious psychiatric adverse events, such as crying, irritability, impatience, anger, and aggression. Something that I personally found really disturbing.
Yes. Hold on. Let's go ahead and look at the back of any medicine. Hold on. Hey guys, name a medicine. You guys want to name any medicine? We can look on the, you guys know in any like commercial for some kind of medication when the guy talks really fast at the end, says may cause diarrhea, blood, dick disorder, your balls might explode, your nipples may come alive, grow teeth, and bite your neck. You may shit out your intestines, your skeleton will start shivering, your eyeballs will turn red and possibly start crying blood, your nose will your nose hairs will start poking your eyes, and they'll say that all really, really quickly at the end. Yeah, medications have side effects. That's a thing. You figure out whether or not you should prescribe these things based on the percentage chance there could be harm caused. All medication has side effects that have some chance of occurring. Did you know that water can kill you? Yeah, water in a high enough capacity can kill you. You can get poisoning from water. Water can poison you.
Disturbing here as well is how there are some hospitals and doctors who are proud of themselves for dealing with children and treating children as young as 3. I mean, for starters, a 3-year-old doesn't know what gender or sex is. They don't really think much of anything. They're
Incorrect. Now, this may sound like an intuitive thing to just believe if you just pull it out of your ass, and that's what these conservative demagogue types do. But no, data has shown that people as young as like 3 years old do recognize gender, do recognize like sexuality and whatnot. This is backed up by data. Sorry, lady, but you're just pulling this out of your ass. Maybe like do some research, maybe come up with a study that suggests that kids can't recognize the existence of gender and sexuality?
3. If they do think anything, it's probably like whether or not dirt has a taste and how much of it they can fit in their mouth. And obviously...
Yeah, that's more or less what I expected from a conservative figure. Like no data, no arguments, just like the intuitive position that a 15-year-old libertarian dipshit with like a middle school or high school education would come to after doing no research and just kind of hearing that this is a thing. Yeah, that's more or less what I expect from a conservative meme.
More importantly, treating someone from the age of 3 means, over a lifetime, that's a lot of money. And yet, drugs that have not been properly tested or studied on healthy kids, that are not FDA approved for this use, that cause emotional issues, are now endorsed by the American Pediatric Association and codified by international guidelines. Well, cover me in...
Yeah, it's almost like you people are fucking losing. It's almost like the mass majority of the medical community and the consensus among scientists and doctors is that transgender people are okay. Trans people are okay. They can exist. They can get their treatment. Getting treatment is good for them. Transitioning is good for them, and so on. And just because you have a really strong feeling that that this is wrong doesn't mean that you're right. I'm sorry, but facts don't care about your feelings. Trans people are valid, what have you, so on, so on. You guys know the memes. Yeah, sorry. Are you triggered?
And maple syrup and call me a pancake. I don't even know what's happening. I don't want to make a joke out of this, but this is probably how we end up with real-life X-Men. What I find interesting here is that most white...
Wouldn't that be a good thing? Wait, that's awesome. Hold on, wait. If the one bad outcome of this is that transgender people end up growing into real-life X-Men and having superpowers, is that not fucking awesome? Wait, that sounds awesome. Hold on, now you're selling me even harder. Hold on, all the data is already on my side, Sydney Watson. You don't have to give me the hard sell.
Widely cited studies conclude that most children who experience gender dysphoria or question their gender will naturally come to embrace their birth sex. In addition, some data suggests that transgender people are still...
Hey, so for starters, the studies that she's referencing here, I know the studies she's referencing here. You guys want to know what study she's referencing here? I'm going to fucking predict it, okay? I never miss to. It is 100% going to be this study. This is the study they all cite. This is the one by on PubMed. The problem is, this study doesn't say what they think it says. This study only interviewed the parents of allegedly dysphoric children. That's it. And it was only 324 of them. It was their kids. Or it was the parents. They didn't ask the kids. They just asked the parents what the parents thought. It's commonly cited by transphobes. It's bad data. As a matter of fact, the authors of this study even spoke out at one point, condemning its use by people like Sydney Watson and other transphobes. Because it just doesn't say what it... Wasn't also in the biased in selection. It was also biased in selection naturally. But yeah, it's just bad data. It's the authors of the study have come out to condemn people like this lady. It's as simple as that.
Likely to commit suicide even after receiving hormone treatment and surgeries. So...
Yep, that's the study. She just cited that study. I fucking never miss. It's always... I know them all. I have them all stored in my brain. I don't need the ultimate research document anymore. It's all in here. It's all in here, baby. It's all stored in the fucking dome, baby. It's all in there.
This rolls us around to my two main questions. If the majority of children eventually outgrow their gender dysphoria, why are we introducing them to hormonal and even sometimes surgical interventions that they otherwise wouldn't need? And if... Okay,
so for starters, there are no kids getting surgical intervention, okay, unless they need it. Second, hormone blockers are all that they're getting, generally. I have yet to hear a story about kids getting like surgery. Hormone blockers are reversible. You just get off of them. The upsides massively outweigh the downsides. Simple as that.
Hormonal therapies and surgical interventions don't necessarily alleviate negative feelings in some adults, then why are they more than likely the first option? Because money. As far as money making goes, the medical industry, particularly in America, is enormous. And when it comes to being transgender, a lifetime of hormone treatment, surgeries, therapy, and other treatments...
Hold on, I actually have a question. I'm very curious with you guys. Hold on. Who here remembers Martin Shkreli? Do you guys remember what Martin Shkreli did? So Martin Shkreli was raise the price of AIDS drugs by 5,000% when he was chief executive of Turing Pharmaceuticals and was convicted last August of defrauding the investors in his hedge funds. He was a piece of shit. He was a fraudster, and he hiked the prices on a very much needed AIDS drug. He's in jail now. It's very cool. But a lot of reactionary types, a lot of conservatives came out to defend him back when he did what he did, just said, hey, it's free market capitalism, baby. How much do you want to bet Sidney Watson would have, did or would have defended Martin Shkreli back in the day? Did that happen? Can anyone find me? If she did it, which she did if she knew about him. If anyone can find me receipts on that, how much do you want to bet that she fucking defended Martin Shkreli back in the day? Because I would bet my fucking balls that she did. Not only that, but the solution to this isn't making it harder for transgender people to get access to medication. It's socialism. Or at least having the fucking healthcare be free. At least having universal healthcare that's just available to anybody for free. I mean, then there's no monetary incentive there. That would get rid of the problem that you perceive to be existing. The problem here isn't that there's a financial motivation for doctors to prescribe these medications. It's that it's expensive and too hard for them to get that medication.
Can add up real fast. Now, remember how I mentioned Planned Parenthood? Yeah, well, when the company's revenue took a dive with fewer women accessing abortion services by 2016, they expanded into the transgender market. In documents, they said that their goal is to diversify their revenue base. And diversify they did. Based on how many donors and sponsors they have.
Hey, sounds like capitalism, my dude. Also, here's some base day of shit. I'll look at that later.
I also guess that they're getting kickbacks from referring patients to doctors and so on. I'm speculating, of course, but it wouldn't shock me. To be quite honest, nothing shocks me.
Yeah, you are speculating pretty hard here. Nothing of what you just said has any value whatsoever. All of your claims so far have been easily falsifiable, basic level 1 transphobe arguments that are super fucking easy to debunk. And now you're just making shit up and asking me to take your word for it. So, Xander Hall, it's super old, don't bother. I imagine it's something like that, yeah.
Shocks me anymore. What can I say? I'm all out of shocks. No shocks given. Okay, thank you, we get it. Now remember how I also mentioned the puberty blocker Lupron? Well, the companies who manufacture it, Abbott Laboratories and Takeda Chemicals, paid almost $200 million to the Department of Justice for giving doctors illegal kickbacks in exchange for prescribing Lupron to patients. Good stuff. Now, although this happened in 2001 and Lupron...
So this happened in 2001 and is irrelevant. What's this have to do with putting kids on hormone blockers? That is one hormone blocker, and it was 19 years ago. Also, pharmaceutical companies go through lawsuits all the time. This is really common. This happens all the time. This is irrelevant.
Does have several other uses. It's not to say that Big Pharma isn't currently operating like this. After all, there is a history of big pharmaceutical companies giving doctors kickbacks for pushing particular drugs. In addition, the cost of Lupron is anywhere from $775 a month, and that over the course of a few years can add up real quick. In fact,
yeah, it's almost like it should be cheaper or even free so that transgender youth have access to it. That's what I would like. That's the real crime here. Not that doctors are too quick to prescribe these things, but that it's too hard and too expensive for transgender youth to get access to it. That's the real crime here.
In 2017, the drug sales equaled $669 million in the United States alone, a $16 million increase from 2 years earlier. And with rates of children identifying as transgender currently skyrocketing across the world, there's a bit of money to be made.
Oh, was that the what's it called? It's the rapid onset gender dysphoria thing. Cruz, Meyer, and McGraw first point out a recent dramatic increase in young people receiving treatment for gender identity issues. One of many examples they use, Gender Identity Development Service in the United Kingdom saw a 2,000% increase in referrals in 7 years. 94 children in 2009-2010 to 1,986 in 2016-2017. So for starters, the study that she is referencing here is the one that is often cited as as where rapid onset gender dysphoria comes from, which has been debunked. The study did bad data. It was the one that only surveyed parents. On top of that, this study that they are referencing, I know this one as well. 94 children in the UK. From 2009 to 2010, in 1 year, only 94 children having some sort of gender identity stuff. And then it was about 2,000 7 years later. What do you think could have happened? Mind you, this is not a lot of people. Like 2,000 people in the UK, like young people in the UK, having gender identity something going on there. is not a lot. That is a very small percentage. This is not like an insane amount. That is 2,000 people. That is an insanely small amount when you consider, I think transgender people are estimated to be around 1% or something, like 0.5 to 1% of the population. Like 2,000 people, that is nothing. That is like way less than you would even expect. What do you think has happened in the last 7 years that between these two timetables that may have increased the likelihood for young people to seek out some services for their gender identity stuff? Do you think maybe it's society has overall become more accepting of trans people? Do you think maybe there's more resources at our disposal to be able to look into these things and know what's going on, such as the widespread availability of the fucking internet? Despite making up only 0.1% of the population, they make up 100% of Xander Hall's chat. That is true.
The world, there's a bit of money to be made here. So in conclusion, put a fork in me. I'm done. Now, unsurprisingly, this demand has been met with more and more gender youth clinics. In fact, the first opened up in 2007 by Boston's Children's Hospital and has since been joined by over 40 others nationwide. But this explosion is also happening for adults as well. In a 14-year span, one study found that gender-affirming surgeries increased by 4-fold. By 2016, this allegedly increased again by 19%. And seeking this sort of surgery isn't cheap, with a huge portion of people paying out of pocket. Over the past decade, medical...
Unbased. Hey, Bernie Sanders. Should have gotten our boy Bernie in there, but hey, at least Biden has folded to a few Bernie's recommendations and demands, so we're riding with Biden. We're riding with Biden till we fucking die, or until he's elected, in which case we're going to bully him relentlessly. But we won't tell him that. Not yet.
Infrastructure to support and treat transgender people has proliferated, and a lot of hospitals and doctors have seized the opportunity to be the front runners in the industry, opening specialized wings, clinics, and training doctors to do specific surgeries. And here...
Oh wow, what a good thing to pause it on. Imagine getting this mad that like a massive field of study is being explored and is being opened up, and doctors are getting interested in this, and clinics are being opened up, and an entire field of research is being mainstreamed. You can only be mad about this if you're like a virulent bigot.
I want to remind you, this is to accommodate 0.6% of the population. Yes.
Hey, wait, hold on. What percent of the population has any fucking rare disease? Do you think that like the rarity of a condition matters in this context? Especially when we talk about transgender people, which, while they do make up a fairly small percentage of the population, when you consider the fact that the population is fucking huge, then it becomes a little bit more relevant. Like maybe okay, maybe it makes sense to have 40 entire clinics in America. A country of, let's see, how big is America? $328 million. Let's do some basic math here, actually. Let's do some basic math. So if we assume that transgender... Actually, we don't even have to. Transgender Americans percentage. Let's see, transgender, where are we at? Where are we at? Where are the transes at? On 2000, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. Let's see, Italy, United States. In 2016, estimated that 0.6% of US adults identify as transgender. So 0.6% of over 350 million is still about 1.4 million, Adam says. So yeah, I would say 40 entire clinics across America is probably pretty reasonable. If not, we should probably have more, honestly, because that's only an estimation from the data that we currently have. There could be a lot more, and having more of those clinics would definitely be nice. But this is not like an insane amount. This is not like an unreasonable amount to expect.
Just over 0.5%. Can't quite work out how to cure cancer or anything like that, but kid, we gotcha. We can stop your puberty. Honestly,
is that even an argument? Oh, hey, we haven't figured out how to cure cancer yet, but there is some amount of resources and doctors working on transgender people, you do realize that the doctors that work on like transitioning people aren't the same doctor, are oncologists, right? You do realize oncologists and the doctors that specialize in like psychology and what have you don't do the same job, right? What are you fucking talking about?
I think the reason why this is happening is also reasonably simple too. People like Jazz Jennings, Caitlyn Jenner, and other celebrities have made it look fun and easy when the truth is, transitioning is an incredibly hard road, and most people who decide to traverse it don't have the enormous bank account of someone like Caitlyn Jenner. If you go on crowdfunding websites, you quickly learn how many people are scraping together their pennies just to fund their transitions. It's not nice. To compound this, education bodies have started integrating transgender theory into classrooms, telling kids that their sex is malleable and fluid. Personally, I think
well, that's the case. Hold on. Oh god, I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna do it in a video game. Okay. Deep breath. Whew. Okay. Not a single argument has been made here. She's just saying a lot of nothing here. The only reason what she's listing, so basically what she's listing here is, for one, that a lot of people try to scrape together money to be able to transition. Yes, the solution to that is we make it easier for them. We make it free. We get universal health care. We get, make it free. Make it so they can just go to a fucking clinic and get their surgeries and their medicines and everything. That's the solution to that. Two, the other things that she's listing is just acceptance of trans people is getting bigger. Like more people are becoming accepting of trans people. This would only be a bad thing if you were able to make a single competent, well-substantiated argument for why being transgender is bad at all in your video, in which you haven't. So sorry, but this isn't an argument in favor of anything that you believe.
I think this is a little weird to do for 0.5% of the population, but I guess weirder things have happened. Further than that, we now have a third option.
Hey, black people are only 13% of the population in America. I mean, would you use that same argument to justify fucking with them? She would. She definitely would. All conservatives are racist.
On birth certificates and driver's licenses. Most websites list a third option when you're identifying your sex. We are given instruction on how to use gender-neutral language or inclusive language. So if you've now...
Imagine being this oppressed, dude. Imagine being a fucking, a conservative, cis, white, straight, fucking, I don't know, any of these things, and getting really, just being so fucking oppressed because the option of choosing a different gender identity is on things, and you can use other pronouns if you want to, and it would be a nice thing to do. Imagine being so oppressed as that is a thing that people are asking you to do. I'm pretty sure she's the one who defended the Christchurch shooter. Oh, this lady defended the Christchurch shooter? That wouldn't surprise me. Don't take my word for it though. Someone in the chat just told me that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Taught an entire generation of young people and children that sex can be changed, glamorized it in the media and in pop culture, and taught people that there are more than two sexes, it's very unsurprising to me that there would in fact be
the consensus among the entirety of the medical community is that sex is a bimodal distribution of secondary sexual characteristics. Sex is not a binary. I'm sorry, the existence of intersex people, like literally it is the overwhelming consensus that sex is more complicated than a binary. It's as simple as that. If you disagree with this, then you just disagree with science, and I'm sorry, but facts don't care about your feelings.
an explosion in people seeking out transgender medical therapy.
Sorry, can't see Twitter right now, not until Emily verifies my shit.
Therapies and treatment. Then you factor in the cost of surgeries and other things like laser hair removal, voice therapy, and so on, and you're looking at an exorbitant amount of money. No matter which way—
Yeah, this isn't an argument in favor of what you're arguing for. It's literally an argument for free healthcare.
You want to slice it and dice it, being transgender is a lifelong cost. And you can bet your bottom dollar that big pharma and the medical industry are—
yes, but apparently, so being transgender is simultaneously a very difficult thing to be that costs a ton of money and it's very hard for people, and people have to scrape together every fucking penny they can get their hands on in order to transition, which is true. But at the same time, it's a trend that people are just doing because celebrities make it look cool, I guess. And they don't— Yeah, okay.
Are making bank as a result. I know this, of course, because I am a wizard. Now, obviously, I've only touched on a fraction of this topic, and there are so many other—
More like a grand wizard. Got her.
—factors. But we've seen a huge medical expansion for a tiny, but growing, portion of the population. And at this point, at least to me, it seems pretty clear that the medical industry is basically—
Oh, and it's not growing, by the way. The number has more or less always been the same. It's just due to other extrinsic variables, such as general access to information regarding gender and transgender stuff, as well as access to medical care, as well as overall societal acceptance of trans people. The number seems to go up because more people feel comfortable coming out of the closet. I'm pretty sure a similar statistic occurred in the back in the 50s, right? Like 50s and 60s, like the amount of gay people being out increased, especially after Stonewall. It's almost like people are more willing to come out about their gender or sexual identity and whatnot if it is more accepted and if there is more resources to have access to in regards to these issues.
Taking people's suffering and turning it into a money-making venture. We're currently manufacturing a gender crisis that will have irreversible and horrible damaging effects for individuals further down the line. And rather than stopping the indoctrination in schools and also addressing
the solution to this is free healthcare. Also, indoctrination in schools. You do realize it's the same thing that, do you guys, oh fuck, I can't believe how many fucking dipshits don't realize that the indoctrination in schools thing is the same argument made by young earth creationists when they get pissed off about, when they used to get pissed off about teachers teaching evolution in school. You guys realize it's the same exact argument, right? I don't want my kids being taught that we evolved from monkeys, that we're this is indoctrination, this is anti-Christian, it's the same argument. It's literally the same argument. Just rewrapped against a new thing. It's literally the same thing. What are creationists? Creationists are people who believe that God created the earth, and they generally believe the earth is only 7,000 years old. And that humans lived alongside dinosaurs, Adam and Eve, blah, blah, and that the earth would, they take the Bible literally and believe that God literally created the universe and the earth 7,000 years ago, more or less.
The mental health aspect of all of this. Instead, we're just pumping people full of expensive and sometimes untested drugs and calling it a day. Now, obviously,
they're not being they're not being pumped in with any untested drugs. This hasn't happened. This isn't a thing.
There are medical professionals out there who do the right things by their patients, who treat them with respect and treat this overall issue with respect, and I think that's really great, and they should be recognized and acknowledged for doing that. But
how much do you want to bet she's referencing those healthcare people in New York that got fined and lost their medical licenses because they advise their gay and trans patients to go through conversion therapy. You guys remember that? We went over that last stream, I believe. It might have been the stream before that. It was from the Alliance Defending Freedom video. A bunch of psychologists or psychiatrists and therapists in New York City got not disbarred. They lost their licenses because they were going off the books and trying to get their patients to go through conversion therapy, which is against the Hippocratic Oath that doctors and psychiatrists and whatnot take when they get their license. I don't know if psychiatrists take it. Do psychiatrists take the Hippocratic Oath? They're technically a doctor, right? So they wouldn't they? Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I really don't know, but it's just generally against what they are supposed to do. It's against the. They do? Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, if doing that is. They have an MD. Yeah, they have an MD. So yeah, they're doctors. They take the Hippocratic Oath. So yeah, trying to pressure your patient into getting any kind of conversion therapy for any reason is against the Hippocratic Oath. How many viewers? Only 300. My stream isn't being listed on YouTube. YouTube is glitched right now, so nobody is being notified that I'm live. Sucks, but hopefully YouTube will fix it.
For the ones who don't, including big pharma companies, Planned Parenthood, and so on, these are the people that need to be held accountable for exploiting people. At the end of the day,
obviously, if you're here, then you would have seen my stream on YouTube. Yeah, because you're here. But there's only 300 of you.
I am of the opinion that we should be questioning much more why this issue is being popularized and glamorized the way that it is. Because I can bet.
Okay, so now she's just doing conjecture or whatever. Okay. That's enough from you, Sydney Watson. And you know what? Considering today's stream has been absolutely fucking scuffed by YouTube, that's it for today as well. I do apologize that I wasn't able to do the stream as I wanted to today, especially since we're in our new apartment, but sadly, just not going to work out that way, unfortunately. It seems like YouTube wants to fuck me over. We're gonna do 2 gaming streams in between now and the next politics stream, so hopefully by then YouTube will fix that, and we'll find out soon. Hey, I'm sorry, not my fault. It sucks. But hey, on the bright side, we got some good memes today.